Darkwatch is one of those forgotten gems that deserved way more attention. A unique blend of Western and horror, this first-person shooter, developed by Raymond Studios and published by Capcom, brought a fresh twist to the genre. While Capcom was dominating with hits like Devil May Cry and Onimusha, Darkwatch slipped under the radar, overshadowed by bigger franchises. But make no mistake, this game had everything to be a cult classic. Set in a supernatural Wild West, Darkwatch throws you into the boots of Jericho Cross, an outlaw-turned-vampire hunter. After a fateful encounter with an ancient vampire, he's cursed with dark powers and recruited by a secret organization to battle the undead. The mix of intense gunplay, eerie environments, and a gripping storyline made it stand out from other FPS games of its time. Beyond its engaging gameplay, Darkwatch impressed with its atmospheric level design and unique mechanics. The ability to use supernatural abilities alongside traditional firearms added depth to the combat. The game also featured a morality system that influenced how Jericho evolved, offering different endings based on the player's choices. It had everything: a compelling protagonist, a rich setting, and exciting gameplay, but it was overshadowed in an era dominated by blockbuster shooters.
Put him down with headshots! Nice shot! Gunslingers! Look out, they can shoot back!
His EEG readings are moving violently.
Increase the barbiturate sedative.
Baroque is one of those RPGs that most people never got the chance to experience, yet it delivers something truly unique. Originally released on PS1 and Sega Saturn, it later received a remake on PlayStation 2, published by Atlus. Unlike many mainstream RPGs, Baroque takes a darker, more surreal approach, throwing players into a haunting world filled with cryptic storytelling, challenging mechanics, and an atmosphere that keeps you constantly on edge. Atlus has always been known for bringing niche and unconventional games to the market, but even among their releases, Baroque remained under the radar. While games from the Shin Megami Tensei series eventually found their audience, Baroque never gained the same traction. This isn't a game that holds your hand, it expects you to figure things out on your own, making every run through its eerie, ever-changing labyrinth a test of patience and skill. The combat blends real-time action with rogue-like mechanics, forcing players to carefully manage their attacks, movement, and resources. Every encounter feels tense, as enemies are unpredictable and often grotesque, each with their own eerie behaviors and weaknesses. On top of that, death is not just a setback, it's a crucial part of progression. Each failure unveils new details about the world, slowly unraveling its cryptic mysteries. But what makes Baroque stand out is its oppressive atmosphere. The game throws you into a twisted, post-apocalyptic world where reality itself seems unstable. The story unfolds in fragments, requiring players to piece together the truth by exploring, dying, and trying again. The gameplay loop is unforgiving, but for those who love deep, immersive experiences, it's a hidden gem worth discovering. God Hand was one of the boldest and most unique games ever released on the PlayStation 2. Developed by Shinji Mikami, the mastermind behind Resident Evil, this game was nothing like the survival horror titles that made him famous. Instead, it delivered a chaotic and over-the-top beat-em-up experience that was so bizarre and unpredictable that it became a cult classic over time. At first glance, God Hand might seem like just another action game, but the moment you start playing, you realize it's something special. The combat is deep, fluid, and completely customizable. Players can mix and match different moves to create their own fighting style, leading to some of the most satisfying hand-to-hand combat ever seen in a game. Every punch, kick, and special attack lands with weight, making every encounter feel rewarding. But what truly sets God Hand apart is its absurd sense of humor. The game doesn't take itself seriously for a second. You'll face ridiculous enemies, from demonic punks to luchador gorillas, and witness some of the most outlandish moments in gaming history. The protagonist, Jean, is a cocky, sarcastic fighter with a supernatural arm that gives him incredible strength. His over-the-top personality and the game's constant stream of jokes make every second of gameplay a wild ride. Despite its unique mechanics and charm, God Hand was torn apart by critics at launch. Many reviews failed to understand its depth and dismissed it as clunky and outdated. Years later, it gained a well-deserved following, with players praising its fast-paced action and hilarious tone. Xenosaga is one of the most ambitious RPG trilogies ever released on the PlayStation 2. Created by Takahashi after his departure from Square Enix, this series was meant to be the spiritual successor to Xenogears, expanding on deep storytelling, philosophical themes, and a vast sci-fi universe. What Monolith Soft delivered was a trilogy that pushed the boundaries of narrative complexity in gaming. Set in a distant future where humanity has colonized space, Xenosaga follows Shionozuki and her advanced android companion Cosmos as they uncover secrets about the mysterious Gnosis, the Zohar artifact, and the deeper mysteries of human existence. The game is packed with cutscenes, some of the longest in any RPG. But they are not just filler, they weave an intricate plot filled with political intrigue, existential questions, and references to classic philosophy and religious texts. Graphically, Xenosaga stood out on the PlayStation 2. Character models were detailed, environments had a distinct futuristic aesthetic, and the cinematic presentation gave it a unique identity. The first game, Episode 1 der Vilazurmacht, laid the foundation with its turn-based combat and heavily story-driven experience. Episode 2, Jenseits von Gut und Böse, refined the mechanics but received mixed reactions due to changes in the art style and battle system. Finally, Episode 3, also Sprach Zarathustra, brought everything together, improving combat, visuals, and delivering a conclusion that still resonates with fans today. Despite its niche appeal and limited mainstream recognition, Xenosaga remains one of the most intellectually engaging RPG trilogies ever made. It was also a crucial step in shaping what would later become the Xenoblade Chronicles series, which took the same grand storytelling approach but streamlined the gameplay for a broader audience. Sangoku Basara is one of those hidden gems that deserved far more recognition outside Japan. While Musu games have always had a dedicated fan base, titles like Dynasty Warriors and Samurai Warriors dominated the genre, leaving this masterpiece somewhat in the shadows. Unlike its counterparts, Sangoku Basara took historical figures and dialed everything up to 11. Flashy combat, exaggerated special moves, and an anime-inspired art style that made every battle feel larger than life. Developed by Capcom, the game featured a roster of legendary warriors from the Sengoku period, reimagined with over-the-top designs and unique combat abilities. Each character had a distinct playstyle, making battles feel fresh and engaging. The sheer spectacle of combat, combined with smooth mechanics, made it one of the most entertaining Musou experiences on the PlayStation 2. Despite its quality, Capcom made a questionable decision when bringing the game to the West. Instead of keeping its original name and style, they rebranded it as Devil Kings, stripping away much of its historical charm and making changes that didn't sit well with fans. The result? It failed to gain the traction it deserved outside Japan. However, in its home country, the series thrived, receiving sequels on the Nintendo Wii, PlayStation 3, and even PlayStation 4. Unfortunately, Capcom eventually seemed to lose interest, leaving the franchise dormant for years. Genji: Dawn of the Samurai is one of those rare gems that push the PlayStation 2 to its limits. Developed by Game Republic and published by Sony, this samurai action game was a technical marvel. The level of detail in its environments, the fluidity of its combat, and the cinematic storytelling made it stand out, yet it never received the recognition it truly deserved. While it did get a sequel on the PlayStation 3, the franchise quietly faded away, leaving fans wondering why Sony never gave it another shot. When people think of samurai games on the PS2, the first name that usually comes up is Onimusha. But Genji offered something different. It combined fast-paced, precise swordplay with historical elements inspired by real events from Japan's Heian period. The combat system was smooth and rewarding, with a unique focus on timing-based counters that made every battle feel intense and skill-driven. The game's atmosphere was further enhanced by its breathtaking art direction, making it hard to believe it was running on PS2 hardware. With the success of modern samurai-themed games like Ghost of Tsushima, it's surprising that Genji never made a proper return. It had all the elements of a great franchise, deep combat, engaging storylines, and an unforgettable aesthetic. When we talk about games set in ancient Rome, most people immediately think of Rise: Son of Rome from Xbox. But there's one title that many overlooked on the PlayStation 2, one that deserves way more recognition. Shadow of the Rome is a forgotten gem, blending brutal combat, deep storytelling, and historical drama into an experience that still holds up today. The game throws you right into the chaos of the Roman Empire, where betrayal, bloodshed, and political conspiracies shape every move. You take on the role of Agrippa, a skilled gladiator, fighting not just for survival but for justice. His father is falsely accused of assassinating Julius Caesar, and the only way to uncover the truth is to battle through the brutal arenas of Rome while navigating a world of corruption. Unlike many hack-and-slash games of its time, Shadow of the Rome doesn't rely solely on combat. It introduces a mix of strategic fights, stealth segments, and an engaging storyline that keeps you hooked from start to finish. Every arena fight is a spectacle, filled with cinematic kills, brutal executions, and the raw intensity of gladiatorial combat. Unfortunately, the game got buried under the hype of bigger releases like Resident Evil 4 and God of War, never reaching the audience it truly deserved.
I thank you for all that you have taught me until this day.
Shinobi on PlayStation 2 is one of those forgotten gems that deserved way more recognition. The franchise had already made history with its classic 2D platformers, but Sega took a bold step by bringing the series into full 3D. What they delivered was a fast-paced, brutally challenging action game that embodied everything players loved about old-school difficulty, but with a fresh style and an incredible sense of speed. Unlike many action games of its time, Shinobi focused on relentless momentum. The more enemies you defeated, the longer you could keep your sword's cursed hunger at bay. If you hesitated, your own weapon would drain your life, forcing players to stay aggressive and master the flow of combat. It was a high-risk, high-reward system that made every fight feel intense and strategic. The game's protagonist, Hotsuma, was a departure from the classic ninja look. Dressed in a sleek black outfit with a flowing red scarf, he moved with an almost supernatural agility, running along walls and slicing through enemies in lightning-fast combos. Visually, Shinobi stood out, and even today, its stylish presentation holds up surprisingly well. Modellista was one of the most unique racing games to ever hit the PlayStation 2. While most developers were focused on realism, Capcom took a completely different route, crafting a game with a stunning cel-shaded art style that made it look like an anime come to life. Even today, its visuals hold up incredibly well, giving it a timeless quality that few racing games can match. But Modellista wasn't just about looks. It delivered fast-paced arcade racing with a deep garage system that let players fine-tune their cars in ways rarely seen outside of full-fledged simulators. It struck a perfect balance between accessibility and depth, making it appealing to both casual players and hardcore racing fans. Released across multiple platforms, it found its strongest audience on the PlayStation 2, the dominant console of its era. Today, in an era dominated by live service games and microtransactions, Modellista stands out even more. It reminds us of a time when developers were willing to take risks, creating bold, creative experiences that didn't rely on constant updates or online multiplayer to stay relevant. Final Fantasy X-2 took an unexpected turn for the franchise. While Final Fantasy X became an instant classic, its direct sequel divided opinions. Square, known for avoiding direct continuations, surprised everyone by delivering a follow-up that was drastically different in tone, gameplay, and structure. Instead of revisiting the full cast from the original, the game focused on a trio of female leads: Yuna, Riku, and Pain. The shift in style was striking. Gone were the somber themes of loss and sacrifice, replaced by a more vibrant, fast-paced adventure. This change led many to dismiss the game as too lighthearted. But beneath its surface, Final Fantasy X-2 offered one of the deepest combat systems in the series. Its battle mechanics introduced a dynamic job system, allowing players to swap classes mid-fight, creating endless strategies. The non-linear exploration and mission-based progression also gave players more freedom than its predecessor. While I didn't enjoy how the story is presented and found it frustrating that getting the perfect ending requires following a guide almost step by step, I still think it's a game worth experiencing. Now I want to hear from you. Have you played any of these? Are there any other underrated PS2 games that deserve more attention? Drop your thoughts in the comments. We read and respond to as many as possible, so let's keep the conversation going.